Hello everyone, this is the final part of the crochet beginner series where we have been making this patchwork bag. In this part we are going to learn increasing and decreasing to make a little flower charm for our bag. We are also going to crochet our strap, which is made up of single crochets, and then we're going to take all of our pieces, hide the ends, and join them together. And then we will be left with our bag that we've worked so hard on. So let's go ahead and get started. So to make the bag straps, there's a lot of ways that you could personalize this. For this bag, I did 2 separate straps. You could, if you wanted, make a strap from here all the way to here and make it really long. That's up to you, but we're gonna sew it on after the fact. We're just going to create the strap, and then in the joining video, we'll join everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how thick I made my strap. You can make your strap as thick as you want. I think this is 6 single crochets wide. It could be 5. I'm not completely sure. And then it has a single crochet row around the outside to give it a little bit more of an even texture. You can really make it as wide as you want. So I actually think it's only 5 wide. And if you're making 2 straps, then you'll do the same thing twice. If you're going to make 1 long strap, then you only have to start the strap once. But you'll start with a slip knot, which we've made a bajillion of these in this series. So take your tail, wrap it around. And honestly, make sure this tail is actually a little bit longer because we'll use that end to sew it onto the bag. Go under, grab the left side, pull it through. So I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how wide I want my strap to be. And then I'm going to add 1 chain to turn. Then in the second chain from my hook, not the first chain but the second, I'm going to make a single crochet and then single crochet in each stitch. And I should only have 5 stitches. You could also use, if you wanted to do a strap of double crochets, you could. If you wanted to do half double crochets, that's fine. I just like the single crochet because I feel like it's the most, I don't know, that's just my preferred stitch. But you could use any stitch you want. We're just going to make a really long rectangle. So chain 1, turn, and then single crochet again across all 5 stitches. Making sure I'm going under both teardrops. Chain 1, turn, single crochet across. So you're going to make these rows until you have a strap that is your desired length. So the strap length is 100 rows for this bag, and that's probably what I'll do for the other bag as well. So that was row 3, so I just need 97 more rows. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to do that. And then I'll see you when I'm finished. And remember, you don't really have to keep count of the rows. You can just count the ridges for the single crochet after you've made a bunch. So I'm going to crochet for quite some time before I even count and see how many I have. Okay, so I got all 100 stitches, 100 rows done. So what I'm going to do is we're going to place our single crochet along the long edge. So each row is going to get a single crochet. And if you can kind of see, there's the space. So here's a space. Here's a space. And you're just going to place a stitch in each space. There should be 100 spaces along the sides. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to try and get one for each row. So we're going to start with the first row. We're going to place a single crochet in the same stitch. And we're going to place one more there. So 3 in the same stitch helps us turn the corner. Just like that. So that third one was for this row. This little hole right here, we'll place a single crochet. That's for this row. Next row is right here. Here's a single crochet. Next row is right here. Single crochet. Next row right here, single crochet. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just go ahead and place single crochets about 100 or however long your strap is down the side, and that makes it look really, really clean. Just try and place them as evenly as possible. I'll see you when we get to the end of the strap. So I'm here in my last stitch. I'm going to place it and then place 2 more in that same spot, again to turn the corner, and then place 5 stitches across the top, and then in the last stitch place 2 more to turn the corner, and then again you're just going to place single crochets down the side. So I'm here in the last stitch, and you can place 1 more acting as the corner, and then slip stitch to round it out and finish it, and then chain 1 and cut your yarn just enough to sew that strap on, so not too much, like 2.5 widths, and pull through, tighten it. So here is one of my straps of the bag. If you're just making one big long shoulder strap, then you're done with the strap. But I need to make a second one exactly like this, and then I'll be done with my straps. So again, you can make these straps thicker if you want. If you make it any thicker or longer, you might have to get extra yarn, because this is the size that I use to base the yardage amount off of. So now that we've finished all of our squares, we should have 14 squares, and they should be roughly the same size. Each square is going to have 2 ends. The end that we made our slip knot with, probably short, and the end that we cast it off on, where we made sure that it was a long tail. We're going to leave the long tail. What we're going to focus on is the short tails. Remember I said that you could use a bobby pin for this? I'm going to show you how to hide an end with the bobby pin. If this is all you have, it's not going to be, as smooth as it would be with a needle, but it's possible. So what you can do with the bobby pin is you can first stick the yarn in the bobby pin, just like this. And then what we're going to do is twist the bobby pin so that it wraps around itself, kind of like that, and gets all twisty. And then we're going to slide our yarn through the middle there, and it should be tight. And you could put a little knot there if you want, but mine's pretty sturdy. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a waffle and I'm going to flip it to the bad side. And what you want to do to make sewing easier is put all of your ends in the top left. If I'm going to sew this square, here's my good tail on the top left. That means this is the bad side. And I'm going to weave my tail in on this side. So you're just going to weave under the back of these stitches. So just pick up a few and slide it through, working your way along. If you can find like the posts of the double crochet and work under there. And the best practice is to weave one direction, and then you could weave up, and then you could weave sideways again, and then you could turn around. This is what really secures it, and go right back where you came from. And I just like to end going through a lot of stitches. And then you can cut your yarn. And there is your end. You can't even really see where it's hidden. And now I can lay this down, and all of my ends should be on the left side. So that went fairly smooth with the bobby pin. Just twist it around itself so that it's tight, and you should be good. So for the next one, I'm going to use a needle. Here are the needles that I like to use. You can also use plastic ones. So I'm going to take my good tail, make sure it's in the top left, and then here's my bad tail for this one. And I know I need to weave it in down here. So I just lick my yarn and slide it through. And then I do the same exact thing. I just weave through the back, going every which way until I feel like it's secure. This feels very secure. This is a very dense stitch because it uses single crochet. So it's super easy to weave in. Like, that feels super secure. So I'm just going to weave back one more time. And then cut my yarn. And there's my bobble. Now for this one, hiding the end is a little bit harder. This is also where it's important because this one could be reversible. So I want to make sure that the good tail is on the left. And the tail is here, which means this is the bad side. And I'm going to hide my end on this side. So here's the good side. Here's the bad side. So for this one, I'm going to go up through that corner treble crochet on the back side. You don't want it to be visible on the front. And then once I get up there, it's a little bit more dense here at the joining of those two rows. So I'm just going to weave through there and then turn around and come back. And then cut. So you need to do that for all 14 of your squares, making sure, like I said, that the good tail is on the left and all your squares can be sat up just like this. For my single crochet, I drew on this side, if you remember. So the tail is actually in the bottom left, but that's also fine. So I just actually wanted to let you know that it's fine if it's on the bottom left or the top left. You just want them to be on the same side. That way we can do like a continuous join with all of our pieces here. Here are all of my squares complete, and now we just need to lay it out and join them in the order that we want. So now I'm just laying out the order that I want them in, and I'll show you the order that I'm doing them in. But just as you're laying them out, make sure you're laying them with all of your tails on the left side, either the top or the bottom. So this is kind of the layout you should have. Basically, if we take a look at the bag here, we have 4 in the front. So that's moss, waffle, bean, granny stitch, and that's right here. Moss, waffle, bean, granny stitch. That's the front. These on the outer edges are going to be the sides and bottom. So I have treble, double, wave, single, half double, and mesh, because I thought those looked, they're kind of the more boring stitches, but I thought, the wave kind of shines here and the mesh still can shine here. They're more full coverage, more sturdy for the bottom of the bag. And I put the more mesh boring ones on the top of the bag. So that's how I did that. And then the other 4 stitches are right here. So now what we're going to do is, you can take a picture of that or whatever, but we're going to join the top together, we're going to join the bottom together in a continuous circle, we're going to join these 2 together, and then we'll go from there. Either using your bobby pin or your tapestry needle, you're going to grab the first 2 squares. So I'm going to join this square to this square, and keeping the tails where they're at, we're going to work with this tail first. So I'm just going to join it. So I'm going to pick up this bobble block, and we're going to pinch these 2 sides together. These 2 blocks actually are pretty close in size, so that's nice for our first one. But we're going to take, the tail is already in the corner here, so we're just going to take our needle or bobby pin and go to the other corner and sew it through. And you might need to stretch a little bit, but you're just going to line these guys up and sew back and forth. It doesn't really matter what stitches you grab. I just grab a little bit from the side my string is on, and then grab a little bit that the other side, and then pull straight through. And then I do it again. Grab some from the side my string is on, grab some from the other side, pull through. Doesn't have to be a lot. You just need to connect these 2 stitches, sewing back and forth. Just like that. So I'm going to keep doing that. Back and forth, grabbing a little bit from each edge. Once you get to the end, just make sure you get both corners. And then I just try my best to kind of level it out at the top. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but these 2 squares are now joined together. And then we just take the rest of this end and weave it into the back, just like we did with the other ends. So just weave it. I just weave it down the middle because it's pretty dense. And then weave back the other way. And then you can cut that tail. These 2 are joined. So now the next step is to join this one to this one using this tail. So I'll join this one to this one with this tail. I'll join this one to this one with this tail. I'll join this one to this one with this tail, this one to this one with this tail, and then this one I'll join to this one with this tail. So at the end of that, I'll have a continuous loop of this row of squares, and there won't be any ends left on them. I'll show you once I get almost to the end here. I also want to mention that if any of your squares are just too kind of short, just stretch it as you join it, and it'll be just fine. So this one's a little short, so I just stretch it. And you could even put like your stitch marker in each of the corners of the square to kind of keep it in place while you sew. Okay, so you should have a continuous thing of 6 squares. So now the last square still has its tail. So you're just gonna make a loop, making sure you're not twisting anything. And you're gonna join this square to the beginning square. Alrighty, so now you should have a continuous loop, and this is the top of our bag. We need to do the same thing for this row until we have a loop just like this with no ends. So we'll join this granny to the bead, bead to the half double to the granny, granny to the bean, bean to the double, and then double back to the granny, and then you'll have a loop, and you'll have 2 loops, and then you also need to join this square to this square. And I will see you when we have all of that. You can lay your squares out however you want. This is just the way I like to do it, to spread out the texture evenly. So now I have both pieces joined in a circle. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, just pretty even as much as you can will do. We can definitely straighten it out when we join it to the next piece. So now you're going to take your 2 tubes and you need to line up the parts you want to be next to each other. You're going to get a piece of your yarn that is, I would say, about 2.5 the length of this. So it should wrap around this whole tube once at least, and then add a little bit extra. And you can thread your needle. So for this part, you just want to make sure you're lining up the squares in the middle. You don't want to sew them together uneven like that. So you want each seam to line up. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to sew my thread up through the back. And I'm going to leave a tail to weave that in later. And then we're going to line up our square. And we're going to do exactly like we did with the other pieces. And just join it back and forth. Except now it's just a much bigger piece that we're joining. Again, all you have to do is just make sure the seams line up. If one piece is wider than another, just stretch it as you sew. Just like that, and sew it on. And all will be okay. This one's a little bit bigger than that one, so I'll stretch the bottom here and sew it on. We're coming up on the last few joins here. And then we're going to sew the tail through the back. Flip it inside out and sew these 2 ends in as well. So now we have a thicker tube. So now we've joined the 2 bottoms together and we still have this tail, and we're just going to weave this tail into the back of this square because it's not long enough to sew the rest of the bag with. Now once again, we need a piece of string that is as long as the top, as long as the sides. It should be able to go all the way around. Plus a little extra. And we're going to weave it through the top corner, just like we did on the other one. And leave a bit of a tail to weave in later. So now we need to find where we want to join. And that would be this to here. So if we lay this flat, you should have 4 in the center and then half of a square on either side. And we can start by joining this square to here and this square to here. And then I'll meet you back when that's connected. Okay, so we've got the whole bottom connected. Now we take the side of this and we're going to sew it to this piece here. And then we'll sew the other side of these to the back of the bag, lining up each square, getting them corner to corner, and then corner to corner here, and then finishing with this side. So the whole bag is joined together now. So this next part is optional, but I'm going to place 2 rounds of single crochets around the top of the bag before we join our straps. And you're going to want to use the same size hook that you usually do. I have misplaced it, so I'm going to use my 4.5 hook. So you can make your slip knot and then put that on your hook, and we're just going to start making single crochets all the way across the top of the bag. Just put them evenly spaced. You might find that there's stitches that you can insert your hook into, or there might not be. It might just be like chains. And when you get to the corner, you just want to stick your hook in the corner and make a stitch and try and flatten out that edge as much as possible. Once you are back to the beginning, place your last few stitches, and you can call it there with 1 row, but I'm going to do 2 rows. So I'm going to slip stitch to the first stitch, chain 1, and then single crochet in the first stitch. And then I'm going to do another row around, just so I have a good base to sew my strap onto. Once we're back to the beginning again, slip stitch to the first stitch, chain 1, and cut your yarn with a tail to weave in. And then you can weave that end in. We're going to take our straps and we're going to sew those on, making sure you don't twist them where you want them. So you could sew them on the front, and we left our tail to use to sew. So you could sew them here, or if you made one long one, you could sew it in the corners. So just weave it in like we weaved all our squares together, and hide all of your ends, and then I will see you back. The last thing we need to do to complete our beginner crochet series is make our flower. To make the flower, we are going to make a magic ring, just because it's going to create a small hole at the front of our flower. For the magic ring, you're going to place your tail down, and you're going to wrap your yarn around your fingers, kind of like we're making a slip knot, but it's reversed. So tail down, wrap it around. And I've got my 4.5mm hook, but just continue to use your 5mm hook. My 5mm hook is downstairs and I don't feel like grabbing it, but it's going to be all the same anyway. You're going to take your hook under the right side, grab the left side, and you're going to grab it so that it twists when you pull it through. So you want your hook facing you, tilt it down, grab that tail, and then once you pull it through, twist up, and that creates the twist in your yarn. See the twist that we made? That's the important part. And then you're going to grab that tail again and pull it through the loop on your hook. And then we have our circle. So inside of our circle, we're going to put 5 single crochets. So that acts as a chain 1. So we're just going to insert your hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And we need to put 4 more single crochets in the magic circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we can grab our tail and pull it tight. So to make our little flower, we're going to be working in the round, which is like a continuous circle, and we're going to need stitch markers to keep our progress. So round 1 was 5 single crochets. Round 2 is going to be increase in each of those 5 stitches. So an increase means putting 2 stitches in one spot, doubling that stitch. At the end, instead of 5 stitches, we'll have 10. So what we need to do is find the first stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is our first stitch of the round. Currently it's easy to see because it's not really connected yet. And you're going to stick your hook in like you're making a single crochet, and then you're going to make a single crochet. And we're going to mark that stitch, because otherwise we're creating a endless spiral and we won't know when to stop if we're not careful. So that was the first single crochet. Now we need to put our hook back in that same stitch and make another single crochet. So if you can see, there's 2 single crochets coming from one spot. That is an increase. So we just need to increase in the next 4 stitches. So here's our next stitch. 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet in the same stitch. Next stitch, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. Next stitch, 1, 2, and last stitch. As you can see, this stitch is occupied by our stitch marker. We only have 1 stitch left, and we need to increase 1 and 2. So we increased 5 times. We should have 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the marked stitch is 10. We're going to do something very similar, but it's going to be a bit more staggered. So we're going to increase to 15 stitches, and to do that, we're going to repeat this sequence. We're going to single crochet in the first stitch and increase in the second stitch. Single crochet in the first, increase in the second, and that'll give us 15 when we're done. So we can remove our stitch marker, and in that first stitch we're going to single crochet and then mark that stitch again, so that we remember that that's the beginning of the row of the round. So single crochet in the first, we did that. Now we can move to the next stitch, and we're going to increase. Place 2 single crochets in the 1 stitch. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do that again. Single crochet in the next stitch, just 1, and then increase in the next stitch. 2 in the same stitch. Repeat that, single crochet, then increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, and in the last stitch, increase. And then we can count and make sure we have 15 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's all the increasing we're going to do. We're going to do one round of no increases, just 15 single crochets. So take out your stitch marker, place the first single crochet, and then replace your stitch marker. And then just place one single crochet in each stitch. And your thing is going to start to curl. That's a good thing. Just keep working around and let it curl as it needs. And 15. We've got our dome. Okay. We're going to do that again, but this time we're going to crochet into only the back loop. So remove your stitch marker. And here's our teardrops that we've been working into. We're just going to do single crochets in the back loop. So mark your first stitch. And then in each of these teardrops, get only the back loop. And that's going to leave a little line of stitches for us later. So 15 single crochets just in the back loop only. Should be leaving that little ridge line. And last one. Great. That marks the middle of our dome. So we had one row of 15 on this side, and now we have one row of 15 on this side of that little ridge. Now we're going to start decreasing. So we're going to decrease 3 times. So right now we have 15 stitches, which means we're going to decrease every 3 stitches. So take out my stitch marker, and in the first stitch, single crochet. And then we're going to mark it. We're going to do 2 more single crochets. So next stitch, single, next stitch, single. We're going into both loops again, just like normal. It helps now to turn it right side out so that that ridge is on the outside. So now we're going to decrease. So to decrease, we're going to make 1 stitch over 2 spots. So what we're going to do is you're going to insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, like you're going to make a single crochet, but you're not. So that's the first stitch. Then you're going to insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and now it's going to kind of look like a half double crochet, except that we've got 2 stitches in here. So you're going to yarn over and pull through 3. So 1 stitch was made of 2 here. So we're going to repeat that again. We have 3 regular single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then decrease. So insert into the first stitch. We're going to insert our hook into these 2 stitches. So in the first stitch, pull up a loop, insert into the second stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And we have one more to do, so 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. And then in the last 2 stitches, we're going to decrease. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 3. So now our circle's getting a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to take the tail and tuck it in. So you should have 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now we're going to decrease 4 times. The repeat we're going to do is 1 single crochet, decrease. So remove your stitch marker, do your first single crochet, replace your stitch marker, and then we're going to decrease. So 1 single crochet, decrease, just like we did in the previous round, and then 1 single crochet, decrease, 1 single crochet, decrease, last time, 1 single crochet, and decrease. So now our hole's getting really small, so we're going to stuff it. I just like to stuff it with scrap yarn. So we're going to stuff it in the hole. Now we should have 8 stitches. 8. We're going to decrease 4 times in a row. So remove your stitch marker. And this is going to be our last round, so you don't really have to use that stitch marker anymore. Just count your decreases. So starting in the first 2 stitches, pull up a loop, pull up a loop, pull through 3. That was 1 decrease. Next decrease. It's definitely a little bit tighter now. 2. 3, and last one, finding each of those stitches, pull through 3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch to the next stitch, chain 1, and cut our yarn, and then pull through. And it looks a little crazy, so what we'll do is we'll use this tail to sew this flat and make it look more like a ball. No really rhyme or reason to this, I just sew it and try and make it look better. This is going to be the back of the flower, so it doesn't matter too much, but you know, you want it to look as clean as possible. Sewing it under there. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm just gonna cut this tail. And now we have our ball. So now, if you can see that little ridge that we left, it should be right about in the middle. It does stagger just a bit right there, but that's okay. We're going to use that to put our petals on. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with any of those little stitches. So if you see each little loop is a stitch. So put any of those on your hook. So you're going to make a slip knot and put that on your hook, and then stick your hook through one of those ridges. Grab your yarn, pull it through the ridge and the loop on your hook. And that's a slip knot. Then in the next ridge, you're going to place 5 double crochets. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That was 1. You're going to put 5 in that same ridge. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in the next ridge, which mine is up here, it's the staggered one, I'm gonna slip stitch. And then in the next stitch, slip stitch again. In the next stitch, I'm going to place 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to slip stitch twice. 1 and 2. Then I'm going to place 5 double crochets in the next stitch. Slip stitch twice. 1, 2. 5 double crochets in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip stitch, slip stitch. 5 double crochets in the next stitch. And we should have one more stitch left. Slip stitch into that. And then we can slip stitch to the beginning. And then chain 1. And we're going to leave a generous tail. And that is our flower. We are going to hide this and make a loop out of it. So I'm going to hide this other end first. And then we're going to take this end and we're going to try and make this look seamless. And then take it up through the middle here, back down through the middle, and leave however long of a tail loop you want. And then we're just going to sew it down like that with the loop still hanging out. I'm going to cut that. And you should have a little flower charm. Pretty cute. It's 3D too. That taught you increasing and decreasing, which is pretty much the gist of any of the toys that you can make with crochet. If you want to use 2 different colors, you can crochet the ball in one color and then join a different color for the petals. But I still think it looks really cute in one color. This is the finished bag. And here's our charm. And so what you can do is I just poke my finger through like the mesh here, and you can just slide it through, open the loop, and then the charm can hang on the bag. I did make one with 2 different colors. That one's a little bit long, and I didn't hide the ends, but there's our little bag. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did happen to follow this series and make this bag, I would love to see your finished product or your progress pictures or anything like that. You can tag me on Instagram. You can tag me on TikTok. I would love to see your guys' creations. Comment down below if there's anything else that you would like to learn or a project that you would like me to create a tutorial for. Happy crocheting!